Hello. Hello, 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 hello. I am here, moot.aesthetik, and we are gathered today to discuss the Blue Sky palette by CColor Cosmetics. This is an unabashed dupe for the Joey Starfish Blue Blood palette. Now, Joey Starfish is a reprehensible person who has done a number of reprehensible things and has not mastered the art of accountability, at least to me, in my humble, irrelevant opinion. But yeah, so I do not support that person, have never supported that person. But I will say, if that person were not the person that they were, that I would probably own some of their palettes because just the packaging just gives me goosebumps. And one of those being Blue Blood. Of course, again, I don't support that person. And so when I first heard about this, the Blue Sky palette, I was like, okay. So I went on the CColor Cosmetics website. CColor is a brand that launched, I believe, in 2017. They're LA based. And much like this unabashed dupe, they specialize in unabashed dupes, at least when it comes to their eyeshadow palettes. I think they have other products that are also dupes as well. I've never tried anything prior to this before, so wasn't sure exactly what to expect. Their products are rather affordable as well, but I'd heard from some of the reviews that I watched prior to purchasing this that the formula wasn't bad, and I actually watched a couple of reviews on this particular palette comparing it to the Blue Blood, and all the ones that I've seen said they actually were pretty comparable, given that the Blue Blood I think is like $52 and this is $10. 10. This palette here is $10. 10 ducats. She's 10. $10. Right? So a $10 eyeshadow palette that apparently can at least hold its own against a $52 eyeshadow palette from a very problematic and seemingly unrepentant person. Or at least sincerely repentant person. Again, who am I? But yeah, I was just intrigued. I thought it was interesting. So I went ahead, picked this up here. This does say it's an 18 color pigment pressed palette, which I found to be kind of odd. I don't know if that was their way of like getting around something. I don't want to assume that kind of intent if it's a translation kind of thing. I know there are languages where the adjective can be placed after, like in Spanish, for example. So, you know, I wasn't sure if that was the case, but I'm going to treat this as a pressed pigment palette as opposed to an eyeshadow palette. And normally that doesn't affect things, but I'll get to later why that's relevant. This is a cruelty-free eyeshadow palette. The brand, I believe, is cruelty-free in general, so if that's something you're interested in. However, it does say on the back of this that this may contain carmine, so if you are vegan or you try to avoid the use of animal byproducts in your cosmetics, this might be something you might want to skip, but it does say it may contain carmine on the back. It is paraben free and supposed to last for 12 months, and it comes in this plastic packaging. We're not here for the plastic packaging. It's not very environmentally friendly, but it is a $10 palette, so I get it. But I do like that they include the ingredients on the actual packaging. I don't know why that's such a huge deal to me. It's not like I'm often looking at that stuff, but I do have that curiosity. You know, I want to see if things shift and change, how that might play out, even though for most people, any shifts and changes in eyeshadows, palettes will mostly be in terms of performance. So if the performance is comparable, but the ingredients list changes and not in a way that's significant, like, oh, now it's, you know, vegan or now it's whatever. It's more, we changed this binder to this binder, you know? So again, I give them points, but is it something I really need to keep score with? I don't know. So the Blue Sky palette, you open it up, and these are the colors, and they do actually look quite nice in person. I wasn't sure at this price point if I would get them and they would look kind of dusty and they would scream discount drugstore, but, or even at the drugstore, this actually probably would just be regular drugstore in terms of the cost, but they actually are quite lovely in person. It does come with a list of names, and I did tape the names on the inside. I won't be going through all of the names. I may or may not mention some of the shade names as I go along, but this here is the eyeshadow palette. 18 colors, again, and like an unabashed dupe of Blue Blood. The arrangements, the colors, everything. I mostly was interested in like this light cobalt blue, this deep shimmer here. Those were kind of what fueled me to want to get this. So getting into the pigmentation, I did this eyeshadow look using the palette, just getting into the particular shades I used. Bam, bam, bam. No, I didn't use that one. Bam, bam. Lies, I did use that one. Bam, 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 bam. No, bam, bam, and bam. So that little misguided tour. So getting into the pigmentation, these shadows are pigmented. One of the reviews that I saw for CColor Cosmetics, or at least that particular palette, is that they are pigmented, but you do have to build them up, and that has been my experience with this palette. But if you are someone who expects pigmentation the moment the formula hits the eye, you will be disappointed. However, it does build up to be the same opacity of the colors in the pan, which is what I look for, so it gets points for that. In terms of the blendability of the shadows, for the most part, it was fine. They do work together, though I did find that they sometimes got a little patchy when they would layer on top of each other, but that was a rare instance. It wasn't something super common. I did not run into that today. I will say blending them, much like building them up, did take a bit of work, but given that it is $10, that's something that you might want to contextualize, figure out how that sits with you. I do have swatches of this palette in full on my Instagram page down below. I will swatch a couple colors for you now, particularly the ones that I was most interested in just seeing how they fared. So swatch a couple of the mattes for you. So here are 3 of the mattes. On camera, it doesn't look too great. I mean, it doesn't look bad, especially, again, given the price point, but even compared to some other palettes that cost 3 times the amount, like they swatch better than those. So that's that cobalt blue. I believe it's called Blue Monday in the Blue Blood. You have this deep blue, and then you have this teal. I'm gonna do a second pass just so you can really see the, see what they can be built up to. In terms of the feel, it is a very soft formula, but it is powdery. I'm normally not a girl that likes powdery formulas, but yeah, so again, I don't think that's bad. I did use all 3 of these actually in the eye look that you see here, and then this one here, which in the palette is called Haze, I used on the bottom. And then I did go in with that pink, which I forgot to mention here in the inner corner. So those are a couple of the mattes. I'm gonna swatch some of the shimmers just so you can get an idea of what you might be looking at if you were to purchase this palette. Now, most of the shimmers from what I've seen in other reviews are pretty comparable to the Blue Blood, with the exception being the deep blue. I think it's called Ocean Ice in the Blue Blood. This is the deep blue here. And again, these are not bad. They're not my favorite shimmers in that they aren't the most metallic shimmers. They do have the opacity. They will cover. They're not very sheer and glittery. I don't mind an opaque glittery shimmer or an opaque shimmer, but like a shimmery shimmer, glittery shimmer with no real base to it. Like, oh, girl, yeah, we're not here for that. But these are nice and opaque. As you can see, they do have some reflective quality. Not the most amazing shimmers, but actually quite good for a $10 eyeshadow palette. And again, holds its own, I think, against some palettes that I own that are 2-3 times the amount. I have an eyeshadow palette in particular, girl, that I'm thinking of right now that was actually like 5 times the amount. And yeah, definitely working with the mattes in this and the shimmers with this is a lot easier. Particularly why I mentioned this one is that, not flipping you off, unless it's what you want. So, This one is more of a shimmer, whereas in the Blue Blood, that deep blue is more of a pressed glitter. So something else to keep in mind. So yes, mattes are pigmented. Not the most pigmented mattes that I've ever used by far. They do take a lot of work to build it up. And I do find I have to go in after I'm layering, which in general I have to do, but I had to do a little more with this palette than normal. And I do find blending can be a bit of an issue because this is a pigment pressed palette. Normally I don't change the way I do my eyeshadow based on the formula, but with this one I found I got much better results tapping it on, which is what I hear is recommended when you're working with pressed pigments versus working with traditional eyeshadows. And I can say, at least with using the Blue Sky eyeshadow palette, that has been corroborated. It worked much better tapping it on than it did blending it, especially because of the biggest con with this palette, the kick up in this palette. This palette wanted to play musical pans so fucking bad. It was in revolt, repeatedly jumping ship to other pans, just blowing in the wind, like, girl, we are free. You've opened the lid, let me out. The kick up in this pan, in this palette, normally kick up doesn't bother me, but with this palette, I have never had an eyeshadow palette so dusty, so like just dusty. It's just the kick up is absolutely ridiculous. I wondered how much of the product I was actually going to get to use and how much of it was just going to be taking an L because the pigments wanted to go on vacation every time I put my brush in one of the pans. So I will say that the kick up in this is absolutely fucking annoying. Absolutely fucking annoying. But other than that, I don't really have a lot of complaints. If this is a color story that interests you, if you are wanting to, you want to use a palette like Blue Blood but not support Joey Starfish in doing so, this is an option for you, you know? I think this is great. It doesn't come with a mirror. I don't really care, and given that it is $10, I did not expect it to come with one. But yeah, this is what she's serving right here. I think you can get quite a few lovely looks out of this. I think the shimmers are fine. I didn't use a glitter primer. Had I used a glitter primer with these shimmers, they would be even better, so I can work around with that. I did use my Gerard Cosmetics Clean Cut Canvas, and I'll include down below the products that I used in general with the face here. I was trying to serve you a little bit of a terrestrial, like extraterrestrial moment, but I think I served you a celestial Tyrone the Crackhead from Dave Chappelle's show moment, which, you know, it's fine, whatever. We all fall short of the glory of the Lord. So yeah, long story short, I would recommend this eyeshadow palette. I think for the cost, the formula is absolutely amazing, again, for the cost, within context of the cost. And there are eyeshadow palettes that cost 2, 3, 4 times the amount of this palette that outperform, or rather, that this outperforms, right? So if you have palettes that cost even more, that can't do as well as this palette that is $10 and has 18 shades. 18 shades, right? It's less than $1 a shadow. And again, I don't think this is a bad look. I feel like you can still make out each of the individual colors that I used. They're not the most pigmented, but they're not bad at all. It is more of a powdery formula, but nah, the kick up, if you are someone who hates kick up, that might really be the deal breaker for you, as well as, again, earlier, that this does potentially contain carmine. So if you want to avoid carmine or other animal byproducts in your cosmetics, that is something to keep in mind. We do have notes here, don't judge me, and if you do, just don't do it too loudly. So here, I think I covered all the bases. It's a yes for me. I'm interested to try other products from CColor Cosmetics. I haven't seen a lot of colorful palettes. A lot of the dupes that they have are mostly neutrals, and as you can tell from the videos that I've posted, you know, I love neutrals. I'm obsessed with neutrals. All I wear are neutral eyeshadows. You think you're seeing blue eyeshadow right here, but I have a filter on that, you know, gives the illusion of something, but once that filter's off, right, it kind of copies whatever I want it to. I'm wearing just a taupey smoky eye, you know? So yeah, would recommend it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you'd like to see additional looks with this palette, let me know. And until next time, bye.